Soft Machine, they're pretty cool. Robert Wyatt, he's like the GOAT of that whole Canterbury scene really. I like that album where he goes on about how his legs don't work anymore. The first time I heard this album I was like, this shit is boring. But now I'm wise and grown, and I can see this album is baller. I just wasn't enough of a pimp the first time I listened to this. I guess over the years, I've become much more of a prog fan, and so I have a new appreciation for this album nowadays. I'm gonna go through it track by track and give some of my thoughts on it. All of the instruments on Facelift sound kinda wrong, maybe due to the live setting. The organ is crazy and deep as hell. The bass, totally despondent. I don't mind it though. I think it plays into what the track wishes to achieve. It spends half its time being sort of floaty jazz, even a little drony at times, which is pretty mean in attitude with all this repressed aggression that snaps out at you. And then moves into some solid proggy, rocky prog rock. It's pretty badass. The track tends to get more smooth, and the conflict from earlier is replaced with more positive feelings and refreshing clarity as everything begins to move with more focus and more intent. Will is being directed, and now we are on top. Just when I began to consider the possibility that these hippies created this album to inspire brain change in people, the tracks started reversing, as if answering my question. Slightly All the Time kicks off immediately into much more conventional jazz than the first track, only a little electrified due to the bass guitar plodding through it. It's very cool and relaxed, and the flutes are especially peace-inducing. It was during this track that it first struck me that there really is quite the ensemble of different instruments on this album. Aside from the usual suspect of jazz, the saxophone, I recognise clarinet, trombone, the aforementioned flutes, and various different sounding keys from piano and organ to something I would expect to find on a Klaus Schulze record. The track remains entirely consistent in feeling throughout, but it's still quite versatile. On Moon in June, Robert Wyatt becomes Mr. Steal Your Girl and sings a little song about how the life of a pimp ain't always so easy. There's a potent loneliness in this song. He makes a remark about how the real emotions that he pours into his music just become a commodity, basically strengthening the loneliness he feels because even the audience is just using his music to serve some base function of their own. And so before this feeling dies, remember how distance tells us lies. This line is just tragic because it suggests that even when he goes home, it won't actually comfort or satisfy him, and that it's more the unattainable idea of home that he longs for. It's probably the past he yearns for, some memory. This track speaks volumes about how we as individuals are all alone in this world and can't truly be understood by another. His longing for some real understanding and affection makes me feel terrible. The instrumental break in this song is like a cloud of despair following over Robert's head. Generally, the instrumentation across this track perfectly sets the mood for Robert's melancholy, quite organ heavy and downtrodden. I think this song is very, very powerful. Then we move on to the last track on the album, Out Bloody Rageous. It's a very beautiful song that makes me feel like I'm on a journey through outer space. Feels very much needed after Moon in June being such a downer. After around 5 minutes, we enter a very fun era of jazz fusion with a huge organ solo. And then after that, we're suddenly back in space again. The piano and drums in this track and across the rest of the album too serve to make this album a very light and inviting experience mostly. The only times this album isn't inviting is when it doesn't want to be, such as the intro to the first track and Moon in June. This album never really does anything crazy jazz-wise, by which I mean like, it's not going on any like free jazz crazy shit, but it's so cool-headed and purposeful and awesome. And this is what I was thinking about during this last track as the album was approaching its close. I love all the little melodious motifs that carry everything and back up the various solos. I think this track is definitely the most positive of the album. It makes me feel great, and for that reason it may be my favourite the album has to offer. What do I think about this album? I think it's a very good album, a classic even. And look, I ain't listened to a lot of Canterbury scene, but this is likely my favourite album of all of that. Even better than Rock Bottom and The Rotters Club. I highly recommend it if you're into prog. I give this album 8.5 cats out of a possible 10 cats. But yeah, that's about it. Subscribe to The Catman Show. Leave a like, leave a comment. Goodbye.